Welcome to this episode of Dr. Ambedkar Thoughts. What better time to understand Dr. Ambedkar's state socialism than the current pandemic? Ideologies and philosophies cannot be understood in isolation. They have to be studied and tasted in the realm of reality and current fact. Let us ponder over some unusual news items that were published in past few days. As a result of this global pandemic, certain capitalist countries of the world have taken some extraordinary decisions that are not in consonance with their cherished free market ideals. Spain has nationalized its private hospitals. France has talked about nationalization of industries if the need arises. UK has nationalized its transport and railways. UK has also declared that it will provide its citizens with £2,500 per month in assistance during this unforeseen time. This move is an incredible intervention for any British government. Donald Trump has issued checks to lakhs of Americans who are confined to their homes. Not just this, but capitalist nations are ordering their multinational corporations on what to produce. Britain's PM Boris Johnson has told auto companies to produce ventilators. Trump went a step ahead and under the Defense Production Act ordered General Motors to start producing ventilators. French President Macron, who immediately on assuming office had announced to make France a startup nation, thinks and moves like a startup, and had announced tax cuts on super rich, had slashed funds for social welfare schemes meant for protection of laborers that included even the hospitals. The same Macron now is announcing free health care and welfare state as a valuable resources of the nation. These are surprising events. Till recent past, it was unbelievable that capitalist countries would be taking such decisions. Indeed, such far-reaching decisions of capitalist governments directly intervening in the economy are surprising. Such interventions in the economy is in fact against the ideology of capitalism. All the countries discussed earlier are staunchly capitalist countries. Economic superpowers like USA and UK that hold capitalism answer for every problem seem helpless and perplexed in the face of the COVID pandemic. The capitalist economy by design is a market-driven economy. There is a negligible state intervention in the economy. Shaping of the economic life of the society is left to the market forces. In the control of governments over transactions in goods and services is minimal. Its main aim is maximization of profit. In contrast, under state socialism, governments do intervene in the market because here the main aim of the government is not profit maximization, but its primary aim is to protect its citizens, especially those belonging to weaker sections of society, from the possible losses arising due to rise and fall in the market. Their aim is to maximize the social goods for the benefit of every section of the society. It is not only the maximization of profit. The purpose for which different services and industries are nationalized by the governments is to protect the life of the citizens and not to protect the market. The state socialism is not against the market, but it lays more stress on protecting the weaker sections of the society in comparison to protecting the market economy. Under the state socialism, the countries tax the rich more through progressive and confiscatory taxes, and through the policy of redistribution share the wealth with needy and poor, with the aim that the wealth is distributed equitably and there are no large scale inequalities in the society. Post 1980, during the era of Thatcher-Reagan, began the laissez-faire economics, which means absence of government regulations. A minimal state means a form of government with minimum intervention in the lives of people. This school believes that when people get state support, they tend to become progressively more dependent and their productivity also drops. But if they do not receive state support, they become self-dependent. This school firmly believes that everyone is benefited when economic growth is ensured. Minimal state is thought to be good for the health of the market. The capitalist economy of America is world's number one economy. The advanced healthcare and medical expertise of America are recognized by the world. Rich from all around the world travel to America for treatment. This number one capitalist economy of the world, in spite of its formidable and advanced healthcare system, appears to be helpless in the face of corona pandemic. In fact, the corona pandemic has exposed the incompetence of the governments of capitalist countries. The world has witnessed that the health infrastructure of America and Britain, even after being the big economies, are ill-equipped to deal with the corona pandemic. In America, the death rate due to corona pandemic is comparatively more among the black. It also reveals their inequities in healthcare system. The economist Simon Mayer, in his article written for BBC Future, has argued that COVID-19 has exposed the limits of free market capitalism, which continues to keep in its grip the economies of England and America since the era of Thatcher and Reagan. Free market capitalism is based on two premises. Market delivers a good quality life, and market will always return to normal after a short period of crisis. COVID-19 has undermined these beliefs. As Noam Chomsky put it, the pandemic has only exposed the suicidal tendencies of capitalism. On the other hand, a communist country like China has been able to control the pandemic in very short period of time. Vietnam, in spite of not being economically very strong, has also been able to control the COVID-19 crisis. We also have a case of Germany, the number one economy of Europe, which has been able to strongly face the crisis. As against the death rate of 12% in Britain, 10% in Spain, the death rate in Germany was just 1.6%. Why have the capitalist economic superpower like America and UK been helpless in the face of corona crisis? All the countries which believe in state socialism have demonstrated a capacity to face the crisis in a far better manner. South Korea, Vietnam, Taiwan, New Zealand, Nordic countries, Germany, all these countries are ones that believe in the philosophy of state socialism. They do believe in the necessity of government intervention in the market economy. When Italy, a member of European Union, was helplessly struggling to cope with pandemic, it was countries like Cuba and China which provide medical aid to Italy. When European Union looked away, liberals criticized Cuba, but it has managed to develop infrastructure to produce the highest number of doctors, nurses and medical professionals in the world. In our country, the example of state of Kerala stands out. In spite of the highest population density, the successful way in which Kerala has handled the crisis is being lauded as a shining example, not only in India but all over the world. The death rate due to the corona pandemic is extremely low and the recovery rate is quite high in Kerala. A history of social security policies spanning over many decades is behind this success story. Since last 50 years, the state has had governments that prioritize the social welfare policies, which in turn has resulted in building of a high quality health infrastructure. This has helped the state to tide over the pandemic in a better manner. German Chancellor Bismarck set up the first modern welfare state as we know today. It was based on an insurance program under which he implemented comprehensive programs like health insurance, accident insurance, disability insurance and old age retirement pension, disability insurance on large scale. Over the years, Germany has introduced a minimum wage, lowered the pension age and many more welfare schemes. Today, Germany is spending 11% of GDP on public health care. India spends only 1.2% of GDP on public health. The welfare state involves a transfer of funds from the state to the services provided as well as directly to individuals. It is funded through redistribution and taxation. Nordic model of economy is based on the conception of welfare state, a model that puts the well-being of the people first instead of well-being of capital. The idea was that if a country's working families were backed by assured health care, free education, good affordable housing and child care, healthy environments, time for leisure, and job security, they would be productive workers. Sweden has been able to overcome the corona pandemic without even clamping at lockdown. Generally, the Nordic model of economy is hailed as a successful model of economy. An essential element part of this model is the conception of welfare state, under which the state takes on the responsibility of providing essential services like healthcare, education, daycare, old age care. Under the Nordic model, the governments provide for social security to its own citizens in the most comprehensive manner. The social democracy in practice under the Nordic model is an ideal example in which the state intervenes in the economy to a great extent. The social democracy in practice under the Nordic model, all the Nordic economies like Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, Norway, Iceland are known high living standard and low income disparities. These countries figures at top ranks on Human Development Index or in human rights records. They are the happiest countries in the world. Their healthcare services and other social security schemes are indeed highest quality and not mere paper policies. They have the highest labor productivity. We see that only those countries which provide for social security as a policy that mainly includes healthcare and education have been able to face the pandemic effectively. Only those countries are successful in dealing with the pandemic which have been able to build a strong healthcare infrastructure through effective social security measures over the years. Thus, health security and social security are interdependent. In comparison to these countries, expenditure on public health and other social securities in India is very low. State socialism does not stand in contravention to capitalism. It is not against the market economy. State socialism should not be linked with communism. Dr. Ambedkar was a pioneer of social welfare policies in India. On 15th August 1935, Dr. Ambedkar established the Independent Labour Party of India. The manifesto of ILP was comprehensive and far-sighted. It included many social welfare schemes for labour which were important for realizing the ideals of welfare state. From 1942 to 46, he was a labour member in Viceroy's Executive Council. He had worked on many welfare policies. The list of such policies is quite long. Dr. Ambedkar envisaged a state similar to Nordic welfare state model, through which social and economic democracy would become a reality in India. Dr. Ambedkar perceived state as an instrument to impart social and economic justice to its people. Dr. Ambedkar's plan of state socialism is with parliamentary democracy and there is no place for dictatorship. At the same time, without closing any avenue for private enterprise. In March 1947, Dr. Ambedkar, on behalf of Scheduled Caste Federation, had sent a memorandum on the safeguards for the scheduled caste to Constituent Assembly. In this memorandum, he put forth his idea of state socialism to protect the fundamental rights of the weaker sections of the society. According to Dr. Ambedkar, it is not enough to enshrine the fundamental rights in the Constitution. Without social and economic justice, it is not possible to realize fundamental rights in the true sense. Dr. Ambedkar puts obligation on the state to plan the economy in such a way that fundamental rights become a reality for weaker sections of the country. He envisaged a welfare state through state socialism in which SC, STs, most vulnerable sections of the society would get social and economic justice. The conception of welfare state implied equality, equitable distribution of wealth, responsibility of public towards those who are not able to earn their livelihood. Dr. Ambedkar envisages a welfare state such that without closing any avenue to private enterprises, it provides equitable distribution of wealth. It put an obligation on the state to plan the economic life of the people which would lead them to the highest point of productivity. Why it is necessary for the state to plan the economic life of the people? Or what is the purpose of prescribing by law the shape and form of the economic structure of the society? Dr. Ambedkar writes, the purpose is to protect the liberty of the individual from invasion by other individual which is object of enacting fundamental rights. Dr. Ambedkar categorically said that the connection between individual liberty and shape and form of the economic structure of the society may not be apparent to everyone. Nonetheless, the connection between the two is real. He further clarifies, just by enshrining fundamental rights in the Constitution does not mean to realize them in reality. What are the value of fundamental rights to those who are unemployed? If a person who is unemployed is offered a choice between a job with some sort of wages, what are the value of fundamental rights to those who are unemployed? If a person who is unemployed is offered a choice between a job with some sort of wages with no fixed hours of labor and interdict on joining a union and the exercise his right to freedom of speech, association, religion, can there is any doubt as to what his choice will be? The fear of starvation, the fear of losing house, the fear of being compelled to take children out of school, the fear of having to be on a public charity, the unemployed are thus compelled to relinquish their fundamental rights for the sake of his employment. What about those who are employed? Constitutional lawyers assume that the enactment of fundamental rights in the Constitution would be enough to safeguard the liberty. They argue that when the state refrains from intervention, what remains is liberty. Dr. Ambedkar questions to whom and for what this liberty is for. Obviously, this liberty is liberty to landlords to increase rents, for capitalists to increase hours of work and reduce rate of wages. In other words, what is called liberty from the control of the state is another name of dictatorship of the private employer. Without the intervention of the state, the realization of the fundamental rights of the weaker section of society is not possible. There is a close connection between economic system of the state and fundamental rights of the individual. There are two important features of the plan. Without dictatorship, to have state socialism with parliamentary democracy, state socialism in the important field of economic life, it prescribes state socialism by the law of the Constitution, so that it will be beyond the reach of a parliamentary majority to suspend, amend or abrogate it. According to Dr. Ambedkar, the soul of democracy is the doctrine of one man, one value, which is supposed to translate into doctrine of one man, one value. To translate it into one man, one value, it is important to define shape and form of economic structure in the Constitution. Then only we can have social and economic democracy. Keeping in mind the social and economic inequities in Indian caste-based society, Dr. Ambedkar suggested modified form of state socialism. There are three main components of Dr. Ambedkar's state socialism. First, basic industries and key industries shall be owned and run by the state. Second, insurance shall be the monopoly of the state. Nationalized insurance gives the individual greater security than a private insurance. It also gives the state the resources necessary for financing economic planning. Third, the agriculture shall be state industry. The farm shall be cultivated as a collective farming. There will be no landlord, no tenant and no landless labor. It is the state's responsibility to supply capital necessary for agriculture and industry. It proposes to nationalize insurance. Nationalized insurance gives individual more security than private insurance. Nationalized insurance pledges resources of the state as a security for the ultimate payment of insurance money. It also gives the state resources necessary for financing its economic plans. Why state socialism is necessary in India? The plan seeks to limit not only the power of government to impose arbitrary restraint, but also of more powerful individuals, or to eliminate possibility of the more powerful having the power to impose arbitrary restraint on the less powerful in the economic field. Dr. Ambedkar could not carry this plan through the Constituent Assembly, but he managed to enshrine some of the ideals of this plan in the directive principle of state policies like Article 38 to Article 46. No government in power has ever tried to implement these ideals with full sincerity. India's conception of welfare state exists merely on paper. The efforts in realizing its ideals have always been half-hearted and forceless and weak. We have seen in video of Malaysia that within a short span of 20 years, Through state intervention in the economy, the country not only eradicated the poverty among the Bhumiputras but also brought radical changes in their lives. Today, during current corona pandemic, it appears that the Indian state has entirely abandoned its migrant workers. Without a robust, strong policy of social security, their fundamental rights like right to life or right to live with dignity are in grave danger. Pandemic calling for structural reforms in economic system and healthcare system. It was socialistic policies that saved the world after First World War and also after Second World War. The Attlee government that came to power after the Second World War in Britain had nationalized the big industries and had implemented free healthcare system. The USA also after both the world wars had adopted social security policies in the field of healthcare, education and housing with state intervention in the economy and successfully brought the country out of perils of war, out of destruction of war. In their fight against corona pandemic, the economic superpowers of the world are adopting many welfare policies of state socialism. On the contrary, it appears that India is following the path of laissez-faire economics, whereas we can successfully overcome the difficult times created by corona pandemics only if government intervene in the economy in a big way and invokes the policy of social security like free healthcare, education, universal basic income, etc. Jai Bhim.